Up and running. I got to make sure that my live is connected here in just a second. But hey, I think we are live. So thanks so much for swinging by, guys. I cannot believe what is actually about to transpire. I have probably one of my most favorite and cherished YouTubers of all time. This is the first YouTuber that I ever started watching on a regular basis. I cannot believe that I have the Dugan Ashley on tonight. But before we get into that, real quick, I'm just going to say hi to the chat room. We're going to dive right in it. We're not even going to mess with all the other shenanigans that we normally do. So let's scroll right back on up and say hi to everybody. Mandatory Carry, Shepard, Drew Lovelace, Harold, Reno May, what's going on from California? Let's see. Izzy, hey, it's not Tuesday, but I ate tacos tonight. Why not? Let's see. Who else we got in here? The Grim Reaper, good to see you. If I miss you, I'm sorry, but I'm going to try to make this quick so we can get into things. Tactical Pineapple, what's going on? Tundra Tactical, so great to see you last week. So awesome to hang with Tyler and the gang last week. That was so much fun. And he is, I think, the only one unscathed by the coronavirus because I have it now. Arsenal 616, good to see you. Let's see, scrolling. Todd Schmidt, my homeboy. All right, good to see you. And let's see. We'll get more people in as we go, but let's see. I got Mike in there. Alana, hey, good to see you. Semi-Armed Life representing Art. Good to see you as always. G23, Jared C, Jig, good to see you. VSO, hey, thanks so much, man. You are too awesome. VSO, he's the dude. Silent Service, Robert, Ad, and Scott, man. Hey guys, we're gonna have a lot more people rolling in. So if you see someone jumping in new, make sure you say hi to them. But we're gonna jump right on into it because man, we have the man, the myth, the legend, none other than Dugan Ashley. Dugan, how you doing?
I'm on TV.
you are on TV, yes. Oh my gosh. Welcome back to your triumphant return. Hey, so there you got it. We've got everybody in the chat room so psyched about this chat. What's going on, man? How's life in your neck of the woods?
Oh, it's pretty great. Thank you for having me on, Mark.
No. Thank you, man. Thank you. This is too awesome. But I'm going to try not to be that Chris Farley interviewer that's okay. Like, you remember that one time you talked about Ryan Gosling? That was pretty cool.
I thought you meant you were going to be like a Chris Farley interviewer, like you're just going to start taking your shirt off and twirling or something.
Oh, I mean, I could do that too. It's up to you. This is your show.
Black boy and a little cold.
See, this is, oh my God, I'm going to be red in the face the entire show. So, all right. So for people who have lived under a rock for the last 5 years or so, tell us who Dugan Ashley is and kind of your background and go from there.
Sure. Okay. All right. So the way that I'm mostly known is through the character Dugan, which is a character in Carnicon, which used to be a YouTube channel. And I want to try to be humble about how I talk about it and hopefully don't put off ego because it's more of a reflection of Americans than it is really of me. You know what I mean? And that's really what it is. And with that, it also came kind of the pattern of its development and then its sudden demise as a channel because it was needed and then it wasn't needed and then it kind of went away. And that's because the nature of it really is like a reflection. And the for people that don't know, the Carnicon YouTube channel was in a period, it started in 2012. It started in the tail end of 2012. So we just had, America had experienced this was like right after Trayvon Martin. This is right after the Sandy Hook incident. This is like we started to see kind of a different shape of the media and the world that is almost like a network analysis between arms manufacturers, private firearms owners, police agencies, military agencies or contracts. All of these things kind of they kind of cross and touch and rub shoulders a bit, but they're all kind of isolated and separated. And one of the things that really permeated the air was a sense of, I would describe it as censorship, but censorship of the emotion and censorship of expression, not censorship of like how we have it now, where we're literally seeing censorship, in the flesh, but a censorship of the mind. And that was kind of something that kind of permeated the air, where people didn't feel comfortable to involve humor with arms. Now, I don't attribute the change in that solely to the Carnicon project. It was just something that helped to cause this thing that had to happen. And it was going to happen no matter what. It was going to happen if Carnicon wasn't around or not. I just took a lot of pleasure, especially starting out, before people figured out exactly what was going on, which was like probably a good, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years before people started to understand. And the first year, it was, nobody would watch it and understand. There weren't memes, there wasn't like there were memes. There weren't concept. This wasn't a concept in the sociosphere. So people would watch this, people would watch AK versus AR, which was, I guess, like the first video that we made that was, that got a lot of views, got a lot of attention, and people would watch it and they would comment literally, it'd be like literal comments, like, I can't believe this guy, he's a fucking idiot. Like, look at this guy, it's just like nothing but comments like that for about a year. And then people started to understand. And then once they understood, then they were like, oh, thank you. And then it evolved from there, and it kind of dissolved into the sociosphere, and it permeated everything. It permeated gun companies. It permeated NFA law at the ATF opinion about things like the SIG brace. Definitely, I can tell you the story about that. It's really interesting, but it permeated everywhere. And the only reason why is because people were starving for it, because they could kind of see it with their mind in a way, or they had a hunger for it, but they didn't know what it was that they wanted. And so this was just like a reflection of that hunger. And that's what the channel was. And so it's been taken down since then. It doesn't exist anymore. All the social media monetization associated with Carnicon doesn't exist anymore. The reason for that is because of the nature of the consolidation of social media as a surveillance apparatus against Americans. And so, while it served its purpose, it was up. And then as things got ugly, it became something that, despite the fact that I understand that social media is a communication tool, it's, in that purpose, in that function, it's, it's like a phone. It's a piece of technology. But in terms of, commercialization and monetization, which is inevitably what ends up happening with anything that grows, it just wasn't the purpose. It's not the purpose of Carnicon. Carnicon's not the purpose. Carnicon is like it's like a comedic social disruption. It's not like a purpose to, like I would sell out its identity if I were to cash out on it. It's not what it's for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense. So as far as what's going on in the chat room, things are just blowing up in there. Real quick question for you from Izzy. I love tacos long. He says, is it true that you killed Peter Palma in a one-on-one laser cat fight?
Peter Palma is very alive. I haven't talked. I probably need to call him. I haven't talked to him I texted him maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. He's been kind of weirding out because I've been going on deep Twitter, and I don't know if he doesn't. I haven't talked to him about it yet, so I don't know if he knows what to think of it. So he might be holding out to see if I've still got marbles in here. you know.
I do also want to say that I have some good friends from YouTube channel Tundra Tactical. They just wanted to express that their whole premise of their channel derived from Carnicon and you. Their slapstick shenanigans, which is basically what they do, is a derivative of what you started years ago. So they wanted me to say
it's all derivative. It's all derivative, my friend.
yeah,
That's one of the things. One of the things that I've learned and understood. I've really changed my mind over the years. My understanding has matured about the nature of things like copyright and like ownership of intellectual property or concepts and where they derive from. And I really firmly believe that things that are creative are, in a way, in a metaphysical way, they're not mine. I'm just seeing them. I'm seeing them, and someone else could see them. And for me to keep that from people, it's not it's not what's right, you know. So they don't, you know, it's not derivative for me. You're making your own way.
So I have to ask a few questions in rapid fire just to make sure that everyone in the chat and anyone who watches this anytime understands exactly that of what Carnicon was or was not. So number one, you were never a snake eater that shot people in the face with an MP5, correct?
Wait, are we talking like real life or what are we talking?
Yes.
Real life? No, not with an MP5. No.
Okay, so you were never an ecologicalist that hunted carp with bows and arrows.
I did do that. I did do that once.
One time.
One time.
And your Gatorade and the shorts went into the water.
Yes, possibly.
You did or did not teach a Russian agent how to shoot a rifle?
No.
No. Okay. So there you go. Everything that you guys see on Carnicon is fictionalized. All right. We just want to make sure that we get that out there to everybody. That's a very interesting point. Luke jumping in there saying with Kobe's passing, we need Carnicon back. So if you guys are not familiar, Kobe Bryant did pass away with his 13-year-old daughter yesterday in a helicopter crash. So that's unfortunate. Any thoughts on that real quick while we got you on, Dugan?
Well, I heard about it this morning, and it's really, you know, like I don't follow sports. I've never been into sports. I understand why people really appreciate sports. So that being said, I've never had a close following of Kobe Bryant. I do have a sympathy for him even prior to his death because of his media targeting, which is, you know, it's a part of a much larger problem that America's not really prepared to discuss in any real honesty and any level of real honesty. But because of that, you know, these are the things that we see are you know, total control of public discourse and public morality into pretty much, I mean, it's essentially just a stimulated version of what's there, you know, and it becomes stimulated through this media inundation, and it's just a very thing. Because if I tell you the fact that Kobe Bryant I'm making some assumptions here. I'm assuming, I'm under the impression that Kobe Bryant caught a case on rape at some point. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So I look at that situation and his targeting in the media when that was occurring without knowing, you know, I don't follow anything. I don't know what was going on, but you know, I look at it and I say, okay, someone's a rapist. If that's the case, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying let's take a hypothetical and say this man's a rapist. It's like I don't think that they should have a nation, you know, keyed up by money and by coordinated attack to attack rapists. There's lots of rapists. They go to prison. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, isn't that what the country that we made? Isn't that the society that we made? Did
That's
we make
correct.
a society where, there's no, there's some kind of severe punishment that outweighs the punishment of the court that we've decided is the mandate, and it outweighs that, and so we allow that to happen after the fact, and it's more damaging. It's got more psychological and monetary damage after whatever he had going on in court, by far outweighing the court. So that's kind of how I looked at the situation in the first place, and then to hear about him losing his life and the live, I heard that he lost his family, and he also lost his his some of his daughter's friends' family, and it's
Mhm.
I just think it's it's just it's a real world.
Mhm. Yep, and I think that it was interesting, that my wife made a comment yesterday when, she was looking through her phone and saw that, Kobe had passed. There were other people on that helicopter, and the headline read, "Kobe and 13-year-old daughter with 5 other people passed." And it's like, okay, it's great. Kobe Bryant was famous. We can't deny that. But and his daughter, that's tragic. But those 5 other people, were they worth less than Kobe? I guess I don't think so. Not to their families' minds. So it was just interesting to see how the media played all that out. So I was naturally surprised to see that. Um, let's move on away from that, because that's not really why we're here. What we wanted to know, obviously, all about y'all. So explain to me how these characters derived, how these characters were formulated inside Carnicon. The characters that you have, as far as the training videos that you did, or the ecologicalist that went out and tried to kill carp, or where did all this stuff come from?
Right there. So bear with me. I'm just plugging in my battery here. Um,
Yeah.
so so okay. So essentially, the character development was had like an idealistic goal, but what actually showed up in the flesh on video is the limitation of availability of people, and the limitation of places and equipment, and not so much ideas. We had lots of ideas, lots of episodes we never shot, that were worked out, that were blocked out in their concept of what made them funny, and what was funny and what wasn't. And we where that met reality of our limitations is what actually played out. And so the characters that you see, um and kind of like there's like some strange places in its chronology where it turns into like a review of a gun, and it's more of like a literal, I mean, I guess none of them are literal reviews, but they're pretty simple. And so times like that would be like times when we were in our infancy and looking at our metrics and going like, okay, we need to put something out while we're working on this other thing that's really big, and then not making it to the big thing because it's just too big and we're just too small and we can't do it. And so we have to abandon it. I mean, we had this one episode that was going to be great, where we were going to go expand the tool shed, where we were going to go into Carnicon defense, and it was going to be, an entire mission with repelling and 4x4s, razors, and thermal imaging, and like we had this absurd head explosion scene that was inspired by, this would have been like after the Rambo movie came out. And so we wanted to make a thermal image sequence of like heads exploding during a mission, and just have it like be completely over the top and absurd. But these are all things that like so much effort was put into attempting to make them, and then we crossed the line of diminishing returns with them, and had to cut our parachute and just go on to the next thing. And so this is like kind of the struggle of the whole channel the entire time is just having the limitation, which the whole time we had, you know, we had YouTube breathing down our necks, you know, the whole time, very early on, much earlier than censorship became mainstream and demonetization became mainstream. We were getting targeted by YouTube on an individual basis, because when the channel started in 2012, YouTube didn't have automation in its, you know, they didn't have advanced algorithms yet. So it was literally, I was literally in the first 5 videos, I was having email exchanges with people from YouTube, you know, holding videos hostage. And so this is kind of like just the growing pain of development, of trying to put something out that's not supposed to exist. You know, it's not supposed to exist. They don't want it. They don't want it to exist. And we're trying to make it exist no matter what, you know, despite that. So the character development is somewhat limited because of that. I think if we could have had no obstacle, it would have absolutely expanded into, you know, total sketch comedy revolving around warfare and firearms, and probably, I'm sure it would have gone into politics, but not like a politic like, you know, where we're shilling for one side or shilling for another, but a politic where we examine the nature of what politics is.
Right on. So one thing I need to do here real quick is say thank you very much to Mandatory Carry for dropping in super chat $10 at work, but I'll watch between rounds, keep fighting and share. Like, thanks, appreciate all that. Also, the American Ale shirt
Yes.
seems like that's still very popular.
Well,
It says some of them in here say that their shirt is holy and they need to get a replacement. Any chance?
well, we don't. I don't have any shirts. I don't have any merchandise. The American Ale, we did have, like, that was another project. We absolutely wanted to expand there was a, you know, we really liked to do Easter eggs. And so, you know, there would be like a box in a box in a box, and you could find little things, the more interest that you have. But if you didn't have interest, you could just watch it, you know. But if you had interest, you could find something else. And we really wanted to make it like that. That was also limited, but the Freedom America Ale had full intent to expand out into the real world of brewing and making that actual beer and getting it out there. But it didn't happen. That's okay. Maybe some other time.
Yeah. How did you escape InRange's basement? Did Carl forget to replace the locks?
That was a lot of fun. Filming with InRange. So I filmed with InRange. I met them. I'm trying to think if we met before then. I feel like we met before Utah. Maybe not. Perhaps not. So we filmed out in Utah at the old, it was like the old Kennedy Missile Range, which is closed down, but it's owned by a lot of land in Utah is owned by, you know, it's essentially, you know, it's public land. And so, you know, this is like an old rundown missile facility. And we went out there and we filmed a series of videos in a day or 2 days. And it was a lot of fun. And Carl's great. He's a super interesting guy.
Yeah, he is. I actually got to meet him last week. Carl, and Ian both were sitting down at lunch during Range Day at SHOT Show, and I, gleefully stepped in and said, "I know you guys are eating and your mouths are full and your hands are dirty, but I don't care. Hey guys, I want to shake your hand."
You just reminded me of something. I want to say something. So I was at SHOT Show one year, and there was a gentleman who approached me that wanted an autograph, and I was like frantically in the middle of something. I don't even remember what, because the reality, and I said no. And if you're watching this, I want to tell you that I am sorry, and that if you let me know who you are, I'll send you an autograph.
That's awesome. So I have to ask a big favor of you. I do have someone that is in the chat room. His name is Harold. Today is his birthday. Would you be so kind to wish him a happy birthday?
Harold, have a wonderful birthday. May you run into many obstacles to fulfill your purpose.
Just so you know, he does have a Carnicon lower for his AR-15, so he
Very
will.
lucky. Very lucky. They didn't believe me when I said limited edition. Limited edition, sir. You are a lucky man.
No shooting with Uncle Dan. He is not at a urinal. He is actually in his car because he's got to be super stealthy. You know, that's how Carnicon does it.
This is a urinal.
It is?
Yeah, it's a urinal. You don't pee in your car? Come on.
I mean, I have once or twice, and in the back of a deuce and a half, but that's for a different story. So what you said you were out in Utah with the in-range guys, you were at a missile silo. Is that just open for anyone to be out there and just do whatever? Is that how that works?
The particular one is it's like the old what is it, the Minuteman? I don't know if it's a Minuteman missile facility, but it's like a 1960s era decommissioned ICBM launch site. And so and then it's still used by like National Guard for firing tows and things like that, which they do, intermittently, like once a year. But it's just like, it's basically like a desolate area. And if anybody's not familiar with Utah, the area that I'm talking about is north of a place called Moab. And Moab is an extremely extremely unique environment. It has erosion, wind erosion and water erosion of the land. And because of its elevation, where it's at in a high desert, the only other place that I'm aware of is there's a place in Saudi Arabia that has a similar, layer of ground exposed by wind and water erosion, but there's nowhere else that's like it. And so they have Moab is, I was living in Moab at that time. And then In Range came in from, I think they're out of Arizona. So they came, Arizona.
That's
so
right.
They came, and then we have P&S is north of Moab. So we met out in kind of like the middle point ish. And the missile facility, yeah, I mean it's open. I mean, it's like if you go out there, you will find a gigantic like a stator for like a giant motor that's the size of a vehicle. I don't know what it's for, but it's, it looks like a scene out of Star Wars from like a desolate planet, and it's half buried in sand. And then next to it will be like, like a drifter took a dump with some wet wipes. And it's like, sitting in the building, and then everything has bullet holes in it. And that's like, and it's just like this giant, moon-based complex. And so we thought it would be a cool background to shoot the video.
I had a question in the chat room that was actually pretty relevant for your videos and everything. Where in the world did you get all of the access to the various weapons that you had on your channel?
Sure, yeah. So most of that stuff is through, obviously through 0702s or from private collectors. Like when we started, of course, like everybody involved, like all the people that do supporting roles in the channel are all firearms collectors, and they work in the industry. They manufacture firearms. Are they firearms that you've bought? But the most of the guns would, originally be like our own personal collections. We would just use that. And then as people started to understand, which is very difficult, like I can remember being in Knob Creek, trying to get interviews with people to make the video was like pulling teeth. You couldn't do it. And you would, you would go up there and try to be funny, and it would just be like, they were just so, I mean, unless I wanted to make 100 clips in a row of somebody sitting there with their arms crossed, it's like, it's not much I can do with the material. And then you would explain to them, hey, it's a funny thing, but they'd never seen it. So they weren't, they were like, well, that's not even a thing. That doesn't even work. Like, you can't do that. And so it was difficult. But as time went on and as people started to understand, they were very generous, extremely generous. I had one family that's out here in Missouri, particularly, that assisted. I won't name them because I don't know if they would want to, but they were extremely generous very early on, and they didn't have to be. They could have uh, looked at it and saw nothing at all, and they saw something and wanted to be a part of it, and so they would help me, and they helped me way more than anybody else, and so I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, half of those weapons that you've talked about, I mean, shoot, the majority of the bullpups, especially the FAMAS with the surrender sticks, I never even touched one of those. Half of the light machine guns that you shot, never even touched those either. So I think the only weapon, I think maybe it was included in one of your episodes, was when I was in Afghanistan, the Estonians had the G3, or the modern version of the MG42, that I was able to shoot while I was supporting them. But that's like the most exotic thing I've ever shot, I think. So, I mean, you had your hands on pure gold in my eyes.
True, yeah, and some of them were really incredible. Some of them not so great. The Sten in particular, the Sten is like, I mean, it's just really underwhelming. Like, there's just no way for me to undersell it enough, because it's like it is like loading a mag in a pipe, and I was like there's a scene in the Sten video where I fire it, to demonstrate its crude mechanics. I just slap it again, it's this open bolt tube gun. So I slapped it against a tree to fire around. Well, that like bent the stock. You know what I mean? So then the stock on a machine gun is like permanently bent. I'm like, oh shit. But the Sten is pretty underwhelming. The most, I would say, out of all of them now, I'm not talking about the practicality or the combat effectiveness. Man, my phone, I feel like I'm in the sea here. Let me try to set this up. Out of all the machine guns, probably the Ultimax is probably the most impressive. I mean, there's just really, it really is a completely totally different experience than pretty much any gun that I've shot. And because it's kind of like Ultimax, the original ones, like the early Mark series, are all like they're kind of like the what would you call it, like integrally designed. So they're not set up to be modular. Like the handguard is molded, everything's molded. The magazines are like weird to insert, they have a track on them, so it's just kind of strange. And then you fire it, and it's just like I don't know what it's like. I don't want to say like a BB gun, like a full auto BB gun, like at the carnival or something, but it's almost like that, but it's 5.56. It's just a very unique gun, and I think the PKM is also pretty incredible for how crude it is, for how basic and crude its design is. It's I mean, there's a little more recoil associated with it, but there's a technique. There's definitely a technique of firing machine guns. Not now in the video, I'm like in the LMG video, for instance, I'm firing them standing, which isn't, that's not really like a technique to shoot machine guns. But there's techniques even when laying down to minimize. I mean, I'm sure like machine gunners are very, machine gunners and military units are probably the most, what would you call that? They're like how there's like farmer knowledge, and it's like you're not going to learn farmer knowledge unless you just get there and stay your ass there for a couple of years. Like, you're just not going to know. There's no way that they can write a manual about it. They can't put it in a TM. There's just like all these little things that you do with your toes and your grip and the way that you tighten your core that make these machine gunners be able to shoot these fucking things out to like 800 meters and hit, like faces that, they can pepper faces at like 800 meters with repeatability, despite that it's, an open bolt machine gun that's pretty crude, and that would seem like when you first fire it, like when you fire it on paper, if you're doing quals, if you're doing zeroing, you're like, oh man, this is just like shot all over the place. I don't really have that much faith in the system, because it's like I tried to shoot a group on this piece of paper at this, X number of yards, and like there it is dispersed. So like only one of them hit the target, the rest of them were all around it. It's not good. Not the case. Their body learns to anticipate what is happening with the gun, and their visual acuity fixates on where the rounds are impacting, and they become one with the machine gun. They become the machine gun. And so that's kind of like the really unique property. I guess it also happens in other fields, like in pistol or really anything, but it's kind of like a beast of its own on machine guns.
Yeah.
Or cruisers, same thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, earlier you were talking about the Ultimac, and that's the Ultimac 100 Mark 8. Is that correct?
I don't have the Mark series memorized. I think this is like the second iteration.
Okay, so, but that's the isn't it the machine gun that is imported from like Singapore?
So it's Jim Sullivan made it, and Jim Sullivan is associated with developments in the M16, and then which is a very interesting story that I'm probably not qualified to talk about. But the Ultimax is like I don't want to say failed. It's not failed. It's a great gun, but it's like it was like a potential runner for like the SAW, essentially, that didn't really have a chance. Stoner himself designed the LNG for the SAW trials, and there's a very cool. Now, if you guys want a project, if you're a nerd, this is a huge project. I'm just going to give this to you. Okay, this is like a big one. It's awesome. So Smithsonian Institute has footage on file of about 8 hours of interviews with Eugene Stoner that have never been published, and they were sitting there and they are accessible to public. They are on reel, so it would cost like $200 to get them transferred over to digital. And so they're sitting there right now wasting away. At some point they're going to get so air exposed that they're going to be destroyed, but they're there right now. In this, I've seen it because at a place that I worked, they had they were associated with it, and so they had like somehow they had an early rendered digital copy that the Smithsonian doesn't have. And so I watched this there for like a week of like 8 hours of Stoner interviews. And in these interviews, he talks about the entire experience of the SAW trials. He talks about his sabotage of his LMG and how it lost out to the M249. He talks about a lot of things. There's video of him and Mikhail Kalashnikov meeting up at Stoner's farm and shooting each other's machine guns and hanging out at the picnic bench, chit-chatting. So this is out there. It's at the Smithsonian Institute. There's a way to look it up. I can't remember, but it's there. If anybody would like to, I've wanted to for years to like get it and just put it out raw, like not even edit it, just put it out as like raw, continuous on like a YouTube channel, just so that the public can see it, put it on archive or something. But I just haven't been able to do it. It's just too many curveballs in my life to get around to it. So if somebody would like to do that, huge. I'm sure that a lot of people would really appreciate to see it. It's great footage.
Well, maybe you and I can just take a trip together. We'll vlog it and go out together and see, get into all the different shenanigans. I'm buying. Oh my goodness! The reason why I was bringing the Ultimac up is because this year at SHOT Show they had a Ultimac 100 Mark 8 from a company called ST Equipment, and I guess it's a company in Singapore. They're importing some AUG knockoffs, and they had one of those out there. I shot it. It was fun. It was the most unique firearm that I found out there. So that's the reason why.
Super gentle to you?
It did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Easy to control in my perspective. I did have a little bit of rise a couple times I shot it, but I did get a chance to shoot several magazines, and the more I shot, the better I felt with it. I did have a previous question I wanted to get back to, but I think I may have lost it. Oh, here's a good one. So Oh, we were talking about the Stein and Grand Thumb. I don't know if you follow him or not.
I've seen him. I did get so I've. You guys should understand. Like, I'm not on social media. I mean,
Sure.
I have a Twitter account right now that I go on and like post like Ted Kaczynski tier manifestos and stuff. But that's about it. So I don't consume anything. I don't watch it. Not that I wouldn't like Grand Thumb. I'm sure I love Grand Thumb. I'm sure that I would love so much that's on YouTube that I could spend my entire life not at my home and on YouTube watching it. Right. That's how much I like that stuff. So so I'm aware of Grand Thumb, and every once in a while I see his thumbnails on his videos like linked to something that I'm searching on Google, and I'm like, oh hey,
Yeah.
look at that video right there. And then I click on it, you know.
Yeah. So Grand Thumb did a Stein video just a few weeks ago, and distinctly calls you out on it, not in a bad way. He basically reminisces on your video and how you're supposed to hold it and everything.
Nice. Good on you.
And he's like talking about how you duct tape the handle so you can reach your finger up like this. It was the most awkward trigger pull I've ever seen. But someone in here,
when I was looking at, like when I first looked at this Sten, and then I'm doing these like fake reviews, and then I'm just thinking about like what does the brain see automatically? Like if I don't even know any guns or anything, I just look at this. What does my brain see? And you can't help but consider that there's no reason to stick the magazine outside the gun, like out the side, hanging out the side like that. Like it's absurd. Like any any reason that you could come up with could be surmounted by the reason of logic of why you shouldn't do that. But that's what it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. So speaking of Grand Thumb, Eats, Shoots, and Lives Tactical is in the chat room. He says he's basically asking for you and Grand Thumb to collaborate at some point in time. I know with your personal life, I'm sure that is probably a mass undertaking, but I can tell you the consensus of the chat room is saying we need you back.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Well, guys, you got that's how it's always been. That's how it is, right? They say that the brightest candles burn out the fastest. Isn't that what they say? Isn't that what Jimi Hendrix said? Or who said that? Do you know who said that? Who's that?
If anyone who can tell me who that is in the chat room, I will send you something. I got this first aid pouch right here from VanQuest. I'll send this to you. If anyone who can tell me who that quote originally came from,
and what the actual quote is, because I probably butchered it.
That's fine. That's fine. That's what Google's for. They can figure that out. And you can email me at fitandfire78@gmail.com. And if you get the answer correct, I'll send that to you. So Kentucky Ballistics jumping in there. Hey, good to see you. He says, yeah, I miss Carnicon. So I do have... So Arsenal 616, he's asked this a couple times. Everybody needs to know. We mentioned it before the video started. Everyone needs to know about the Yankee Boogle video and the Yankee Boogle device. So, what was that all about?
Yeah. So the Yankee Boogle was actually, so that's like a device that's made by, it's not made by me. I didn't make it, but we did. So like we had the idea years ago. The original concept was like, how do we get a firearm, like a major retail firearms manufacturer, to design a firearm where we put in an Easter egg where it's like you easily turn it into full auto and then let it be sold in like the tens of thousands for like a decade, and then don't say anything about it, just keep it a secret, and then one day just like release what, like you just pull this up, mission done before, and so we wanted to do that for a long time, but that didn't really happen. So instead of that, we made this, it's essentially like a drop-in autoseer. We made it, of course, it's on a 07, 02 when we developed this thing, and it's 3D printed, and it uses the flexibility of the filament of PLA, nylon, whatever, to function like a single piece drop-in autoseer. And it takes about like on the video, what we printed it on was a broken, which is why it's at, if you notice in the video, the printer is at an angle. That's because it's broken. Like the rails are broken. So its resolution is, already low. Its precision is, or its accuracy is low. And we were able to print like a series of these in about, I think it was like a 7-minute total print time for like 4 of them. And so now you have 4 plastic filament drop-in auto sears that can go into any AR-15 with a M16 position carrier. If they switched out guns to like the gimped carrier, it can be made for that. It doesn't really matter. It can be made for an AR-10. That's what this device is. And then we made it a few years ago. The guy who made it didn't actually tell me about it, that he made it. He just kind of made it and like sat on it and was thinking about it and pondering it. And then when I was talking to him about our original idea for the project, like, man, I really wish we could have, like done something like this. And he's like, well, I did make this one thing. So that was a few years ago. That was probably 2017, maybe, I think, is when the Boogle was actually made. And then I sat on it and filmed video last year. So that video was shot last winter, not this winter. So I filmed it last year and then sat on all the footage and waited and waited and waited. And I was really waiting for what I thought would be a clear and resolute time to release it. And it just doesn't always work out like that. Like we any opportunity that would be logical or make sense to make has probably already passed. But if it hasn't, it was right when it was released on Christmas 2019. That was when it was released, on Christmas. So that's kind of like my, in a way, hopefully not my magnum opus, but something that I wanted to give to Americans so that they can, of course, the legal implications of printing a drop-in auto sear, it's very illegal. It's if you're caught with it, you will be prosecuted. So this is not the point of it. The point of it is to cause reaction from the state apparatus that is the state and consumer apparatus that is pushing 1 inch at a time to disarm Americans. And although it is so it's out now. There's no going back. It's out. It's digital data. It's never going away. They can't take it away. It makes every single potentially machine gun, if someone should so choose. It's the ones in the video are printed on straight gray PLA, which is very basic, cheap filament. It's like probably the most unsuitable filament to use for it. And I don't know how many rounds it lasts for, because I just shot it until my gas tubes were glowing, and then I just stopped and I said, that's good. That's more than I've ever shot in combat. So like, we're good. Like, with mission accomplished, and I hope that people can understand the appropriateness of a seemingly it's easy to look at it as the release of the Yankee Boogle. It's easy to look at it as irresponsible and reckless and unforeseeing of the potential consequence. I just don't think that perception is accurate, though. Like, I don't think that's really, I don't think that perception or that account of the situation is really taking into account the full scope of the situation that we're in. Okay.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'll just,
mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things that you could look at is you can kind of look back to last week with Virginia and what happened there. A whole bunch of people coming out. Things could have gone sideways really quick. I really am extremely happy that we were able to have a large concentration of 2A advocates and nothing go wrong. I think there was one arrest, and that was because a woman was told by the police to take her you know,
Burqa.
yeah, something off, and she refused, and they arrested her. So that was rather interesting. Anyway, so speaking of that, that kind of leads into the next thing is you've been talking about Twitter. Your Twitter account is up and running. Do you want to share that with people? Does it matter?
I don't know if it's not really appropriate to go into this to the depth of it. I will say this for anybody that wanted to see it or has seen it and has been it's enlightening and also disturbing. And my goal with it is to you should it's very confusing. If you would look at it as you would look at, let's say, like a celebrity Twitter, like let's say some celebrity that wants to make public comment on some kind of socio-political phenomenon or event that's in the current press, and they would put out their well, I think this, well, I think that, like making judgments. It's not really like that. It's like an approach of a diary, and that's how it should be looked at, but not just a normal diary. It's like a diary of intense meditation and concentration with total disregard for the assumptions that we take for granted of how we evaluate and navigate our reality. Because the plain and simple truth of what is going on right now with the tension in Virginia and the entire United States and really the world, because tension is not just going on in Virginia. It's not just going on in the United States. This is going on everywhere. This has been going on in Europe for 7 years. This has been going on in the Middle East, in the places that were not even at war for decades. So this is like a global buildup of tension, and it's destabilizing to governments, and it's uncomfortable because of that. It's uncomfortable to even evaluate or try to take any kind of look at the situation and its mechanics and its nature of what is actually taking place, not from a perspective of, well, I want this, so I'm going to say this. I'm with this team, so I'm going to say this. I expect this outcome of a give me, so I'm going to, root for this guy. I'm purposefully attempting to have a dialectic with myself, with the notion of how you would consider the almost like your vision that you have alone of how you are in your own head cage looking at the world every day through the media, like reading articles, reading blogs, watching videos, trying to get some kind of understanding of what has happened to the decency of the world, and then trying to wrap your head around that. That's kind of like the position that I'm taking is it's almost like a purposeful assumption of the inner mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so the methods that I've been using they're not normal. They're not normal conversation. They're not normal dialogue. They are getting to the root in the same way that like an Aristotelian consideration. They're not for argument or people can argue on them. That's not the way they're designed. They don't really give you anything to argue on because that's not the nature. And
Right.
so if you were to go to it and you didn't know that, then you would probably be horribly disturbed. It uses a lot of visual imagery, a lot of contrasting of subjects to demonstrate something that's not understood, which is that all people can see the same thing of different things that are not alike, and they can identify them as the same thing. And all people can also see different things of the same thing. Like they can look at one object or one circumstance or one concept that's sold by the media, and they can have multiple perspectives of what that thing is, and each one is absolutely convinced that it's correct. But the reality is that that's not possible, right? There's a physical world where we all are, and there could be none of them correct. There could be one that's correct. None of them could be correct. It could be something completely different. And so this is kind of like the way that I'm doing the Twitter, and it's pretty dark because it explores realities that people won't accept. It explores the reality of the organic resistance that's within the nature of our founding as a country, as as militiamen who have since been neutered, and we don't have militia anymore. I mean, we do have militias, but it's not the same, right? It's not the same. So it's like the entire organic resistance that's building in the mind, in the opinion of people, of how they look at the situation, is kind of it's like, if you really break it down and look at it, it's like, well, I've got a lot of guns and a lot of ammo, and so I'll be okay. And that's happened in other places in the world before, and they're not okay. They lost it all, and it's done, and they ain't never coming back. And so this is like what I'm trying to bring to the table, because there's plenty of people that are ready to go, that have never been, but they're sure that they are, and they don't have a backup plan, and they don't have any, like, there is no consideration of, like, what if I lose? What if we lose? What if it's already known that we're coming? It's already known that we're building up. It's already known that we're going to resist, because that's who we are as a country. I don't think anybody ever had a confusion that Americans don't like to kick ass, right? Like, I mean, I don't think there's any confusion about that for anyone. Like, it's known. So, it's a consideration. This is these kind of things, very uncomfortable to talk about, but that's what my effort's been, and it should be viewed more as like a diary.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, you are bringing up several points that seem to be extremely deep, especially what I'm seeing in the chat room right now. A lot of people are like, "What are you talking about?" But I'm grasping what you're trying to say. And there's an aspect of things being taken away from us and we revolting against it. But at the same time, how far are we prepared to go to revolt against that?
Right. And do you want me to speak on that more, or would you?
Sure. No, this is you. This is all you.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. So to speak on that, and I try not to get, I don't want to get deep down in the weeds on it, because it wouldn't be productive. But the essential thing is that when we were founded as a country, and when we resisted, the monarchy, it's you have to look at it like an energy system, or like an ecological system. So where does the energy come from of tyranny? Is it because a king has will, because they have a will, because they sit in their chair and they look at their things and they go, this makes me powerful, so then I'm going to exercise my power? Well, no. But that's kind of how we think of it, right? Isn't that kind of, we just think, oh, this is a bad guy, and he makes bad thoughts, and then he does bad things with his bad thoughts. But the reality is that that's not what kills people. Bad thoughts don't kill people. Metal kills people. People kill people. You got to move them. You got to feed them. You got to give them beans. You got to give them bullets. You got to have fuel. You got to have transport. You got to have routes secured. You got to have communications secured. So all of these things have to be done. Well, how are they done? They're done with money, right? And so the resistance of any threat of tyranny is not, it doesn't lie in just the act of shooting and the inundation of America through entertainment, through seeing, and through the way that we train. When we go to train, we just shoot at targets. It's like a huge thing. Like if you ever take a training class from anybody that was from CAG or something like that, and then they're out in the civilian world teaching, the huge thing that CAG does, which CAG is a special missions unit, and they train to, it's particularly like their bread and butter would be like hostage rescue. So like a situation where normally it would be so dangerous and the probability of escaping unscathed is like so low that they would just drop the whole building. They would just kill everybody inside. But because there's something, their mission is not to kill everybody. Their mission is is to secure an asset. And so they have to go in, right? And that's where room clearing comes from. Room clearing is not like, you don't room clear to just go in and kill everybody. That's not even a thing. Now, people think that's a thing because they don't know, but that's not what it is. Because that is so, you know what the probability is of you going into a room that you don't really know and people are in there with rifles? Like, you know how dead you're going to be? Like, it doesn't matter how good your equipment is. I mean, maybe if there's one guy, you'll be lucky, but if it's a hardened target, like your probability is super low. They're going in there and they're doing all that training, all that high speed shit because they don't have any interest because their mission is to secure the asset. So it's a very important distinction. Now, this distinction isn't really carried in the American sociosphere, and so they see all these things. They see the movies. They see, you know, the movies. They don't even like guns, right? Like they would love to take away their guns, but they show them, right? And they show them being shot at people, and so people have this romantic, or not. I don't want to use the word romantic. They have this juvenile notion that to win conflict is about shooting, right? Shoot the target, aim, trigger control, squeeze the trigger, engage the target, kill it. And that's what they think it's all about. And that, you know, it's really like, and I say this with like the utmost respect. I don't mean this in any kind of disrespectful way. This is like, I care about you. I love you. I don't want you to fail, right? So the act of shooting for a professional soldier, I'm talking like a grunt, is like 0.00001% of their experience in combat. There are so many hours that are not shooting, that are getting to the place where they need to shoot, that are preparing all their equipment, getting the vehicles, figuring out what's going to happen when they're hitting IEDs and people are, you know, being fucking pulverized by high pressure explosives and shooting out their vehicles like microwaves, and then figuring out how they're going to continue mission and then get to the place that they're going to be. And essentially what it all boils down to is that in any kind of conflict, whether we're talking light patrolling, we're talking mechanized patrolling like in Iraq, any of these situations, it doesn't matter how complex it is. It doesn't matter if it's combined arms like aircraft, vehicles. It doesn't matter. They all boil down to ambushing people or being ambushed by people. And everything that all soldiers, it doesn't matter if they're Navy or pilots or ground pounders or special forces, the entire mastery of warfare is controlling if you are ambushing or getting ambushed and when it's happening. And that's it. The shooting isn't even conscious. That's why they train to shoot so much, because when it's time to shoot, they're just going to shoot. It just happens. If they get ambushed, they're not even going to know that they're getting ambushed because it shouldn't have happened. So it's just going to happen, and then they're going to shoot back, and then, you know, they're either going to push through, or if they have some kind of strange SOP that's not pushed through, then they're going to do that. But their shooting is just going to happen. If you're ambushing people, the easiest part of the ambush is shooting. There is no thought in it. It's, you know, it's totally animal brain. The you know, when people shoot in combat, when they shoot, it's not, you know, we really get the, especially with these days with the prevalence of like we see police engagement footage or like self-defense footage from security cameras and stuff. And so this really ingrains in the head that an engagement is like, you know, 3 seconds to 2 minutes, you know, in probability, that's where it's going to be, of exchange of fire, and then whoever's still standing afterwards is the winner, and then that's it. And this is taking place. You have to understand this is taking place in an environment that already has everything. It has everything. There's no like, nobody came through there and like burned everything down first. Nobody, you know, they didn't have to like drive 20 miles to get there or like starve for 2 days before they had this engagement. So like all the police engagements, the self-defense engagements, they're not representative of combat. Combat is like, you live there, you don't get to go home, you poop in a bag. You're going to poop in a bag, you're going to roll up your bag, you're going to stick it in your rucksack, you're going to carry around your own shit in a rucksack, you're going to eat you're going to shit into your MRE bag after you've eaten it. You're going to eat the MRE one piece at a time, and then in the unlikely case that you get ambushed while you're in your patrol base, you're going to put each item, its wrapper, back into the MRE and put the MRE back into the rucksack every single time, and you're going to eat each thing one at a time, so that if you get ambushed and you have to just grab your shit and go, you're just not leaving anything. You're not leaving any trace. Or if you have to go to your like your gold or your black, like your alternate base, because you're compromised or something, your dog leg catches somebody's on you trail, then you have to jump up and move. And it's like you don't have the luxury of making mistakes, so you have to do it this way. So this is like I'm sorry, this is painful detail, but I'm just saying that this is what war is. This is not. It's not shooting. It's like if you shot a whole bunch and then you were tired, like you were at the range all day and you're done. Except it's not done, and it's not going to be done for a long time. And you got to figure out a way not to want to die, and you got to figure a way, which is a real thing. That's like a real thing that occurs in combat. It's like people like low morale, and people, it's humanity. So it's like, I just don't think. I think that, the way that I'm approaching this like a pariah is because I am trying to engage your real mind to consider what might not be the best consideration to look at this thing. It might not be. I mean, if you lose, it's not good, right? So like we want to win. So it's like maybe we need to horizontally integrate a little bit. Like maybe we need to broaden and get some more angles of pressure other than shooting. Because in my opinion, I don't know about you, but the way that I'm looking at this, I look at the gun grabbers and I can see that the end game of all this is to take the United States, period. It's to take the United States, and for the United States to not have a constitution and to be a total publicly accepted vassal state. And that's the end goal. So that's pretty hard to do. You probably have to have a big war to do that. You can't have a big war unless a bunch of people are shooting. So it's like, I view this entire escalation, I don't view it like a game of chicken where they're like, we're taking your guns, you're not going to do anything about it. And then we're like, oh no, you're not. Look at how much I can shoot. I don't look at that as the situation. That's not the situation. The situation is, it doesn't matter if the politicians get killed. It doesn't matter if their paid state employees get killed by militia or citizens in some kind of conflict like Lexington and Concord. It doesn't matter, because they'll be replaced and they'll be paid. And it'll be your neighbor that goes and replaces them, because America has lost ethic and we don't have anything to stand on anymore other than money. And that's why you see in the media and everywhere that we look, you see a value proposition solely based off of monetary consideration, because money has replaced ethic. And if people don't have it, they don't consider it worthwhile or worth fighting for. And it's hard to see this now. It's easy to say, no, that's not true, I've got heart. But, it's like, are people really starving here? Are people really, like how much is it going to affect the psychology of people when they can't operate as they've been operating in the past 10 years? I mean, this is just like a completely different environment where we're very soft.
Absolutely. I can tell you, Midas, he jumped in here and he says, I'm going to have to clean up my brain matter off the walls because my mind is blown. And I think what a lot of that you've just said is something that is going to take a very long time to digest, even for me. I mean, I'm grasping what you're saying. The idea of a soldier going overseas and just shooting. That's what we think happens. That's not what happens. I can remember sitting at a highway interchange for days and days and days on end, looking at the exact same thing over and over and over again, until one day we looked over and said, that doesn't look right. And we called the engineers in. Sure enough, they had placed an IED overnight when we weren't there. So it's those small little wins that you'll never hear about, you'll never see, you'll never understand. And then how that, kind of perpetuates into a larger thing. So that's amazing. I mean, everything that you just said was just, I'm
and
overloaded.
My intent, again, just to make this clear. So like if somebody went to the Twitter, if they're not, this has also been a continuous stream for like over a month of like essentially 24 hours a day. Like if I wake up at 2 a.m. and feel like making a tweet or feel like something that's on my mind, I'll just tweet it. I don't like store it. I'm just tweeting it. And it's essentially all revolving around this conflict that's building for the entire world, not just the United States. And so, as weird as it is, I understand it's weird, but it has to be weird. And I have to do it the way that I'm doing it because it has to defeat the inundation that we have of normalcy bias, which is not accurate. And my intent is solely based around the defense of people and because you can talk about the Constitution and how great it's great. I mean, I love the United States. You can talk about it all day. If we lose it, it doesn't really matter, right? So it's like my and if people get killed, if good people get killed, it's like that's a loss. So, especially if it's for nothing, especially if they lose, right? If they sacrifice and they lose. So it's like I'm trying to plant the seed that, maybe the reason that we're so badass is because we've had a lot of money flooded into us for the past 100 years, right? And maybe that has something to do with our military campaign success. And maybe if that money is provided to us and it's not really reflective of our capacity to produce because it's a globalized system, so it's globalized, necessarily it can't be entirely from the United States. So it's like, what the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union was first recognized in 1933, they came about, the communists took over in Russia in 1917, but they didn't get recognized by nation states as a legitimate state until 1933. Once they got recognized, what the first, as they took over Russia, they had different phases that were planned out almost like on, they're almost like a white paper. So their first economic venture, because there's a communist model, remember? So it's like, if you know anything about communism, it's not a functional, it's not like a business model where it's like you have ins and outs and you're in the red and the black. It's like a total deficit. So there's nothing. Well, the first sale that the communists made was to go into the Ukraine and to, turn it into a satellite country. And then they stole all of their grain. And millions of people starved to death. Millions of people starved to death because their food was taken by military occupation. And you know where they sent it? They sent it here for us, and we ate it. And that is the first, we bought it from. We gave our US dollars to communist Russia, who stole food from Ukraine and killed millions of people with starvation. And that's where it went. And people don't know that, but if you just research it, it's there, it's all there. So it's just like, that's just one little piece of a puzzle that's like, maybe things are not what they seem. And maybe that money that has been the fuel of our military success is not reflective of our actual existential capability to win combat. And perhaps, just perhaps, I'm not saying that this is the way that it is, I'm just saying consider it. Consider the possibility, what would happen if that rug got pulled out from under us and you're on your own. Mm-hmm. And consider then what the options are, right? And it's that's kind of like what the whole thing is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We could go down this rabbit hole a lot further.
Sure. Yeah.
um,
I apologize. I'm winded.
no, please don't apologize. This is all good stuff. I mean, the whole aspect of Ukraine, that's not something I've ever heard about. And I'm going to have to go and research that even further and learn more about that. That's just not something I'm familiar with. So that's amazing. But typically we go for about an hour. We're over that by 15 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping things up. I do have two last questions. I know that it's been on everybody's mind. And the first one is, will Carnicon return?
That I can't say. I'm not going to say definitively no, because you never know. But it's not the direction that, because to understand what Carnicon really is, that it's like a disruptive, it's a disruptive comedy that's not supposed to exist, right? That's really what it is, and whatever shape or form it would ever take would be of that nature. So I can't say for sure. I don't have any plans to do it. I don't have the capability to do it. I don't have the capability. I've become really meek in terms of like my living. I've tried to downsize in the past 6 years, and I don't make anything near like I used to make in terms of money. So it's like I don't have the capability to do it, the financial capability to do it. But I won't say no. It's not like it's for sure that it would never happen. It would just have to be circumstantially fill that role of a disruptive comedy.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I can tell you, we all miss the comedy. We all miss everything about it. We would, I'm sure that we would respond in kind, to support you guys and everything that you guys did. Harold jumping in here says, why not come back with a Carnicon special now and then, like a great Columbo?
Possibly. It's a possibility.
All right. And then the last question I have for you is AR or AK? Which one is it?
Well, okay. What's the domain of consideration? Are we talking like all around? Or are we talking like combat, just having a gun to shoot? What are we talking?
We're talking. We're talking in the Matrix movie when Neo says we need guns, lots of guns, and the whole freaking arsenal comes. Right?
Right?
No, well, I was asking you which one you grabbing first, AK or AR?
AR, baby.
There it is.
All American AR-15. AR-15 is the most American rifle that this country's ever had. It's made in Hollywood, California, before they were anti-gun. It's incredible.
There you go. You've heard it definitively from Dugan Ashley himself. The AR-15 is the first thing he's going to grab. So with that, Dug, man, thank you so very much. This has been by far an honor and a privilege to have you on my channel, and it's we need you back. That's all I'm going to say. And if there's anything that I can do to help that in the future, whenever that may be, please feel free to reach out to me, and we'll make something happen. But we're going to go ahead and sign off, guys. Thank you so much. We have 116 viewers right now. Oh my goodness, that's the most I've ever had in one sitting on any live chat. So thank you so very much. Blitz, thank you for the super chat. That was awesome. I appreciate it. We're going to sign off for tonight. Thank you so again. Dugan, last word to you. Anything you got to say?
Go USA.
There it is. All right. If you guys don't already know, there is an archive of USA. There is an archive of Carnicon. You can search Carnicon on YouTube, and you can find all the old videos, because they found them and they saved them. So thanks again. I appreciate it. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for showing up in the chat room. Keep calm and carry. We'll see you guys later. Bye, y'all.